Hello, and welcome back to J.P.'s World of Wrestling. I am your man, J.P. So, I've been doing my top 5 lists, which are, pretty well received. People seem to like those. You guys seem to like those. And my past few that I've done, I've also been profiling my original San Francisco toy maker WCW figures. And this video is going to be the same. So I'm going to start with the figure. And today's featured figure, well, first of all, I've got to tell you that it's time. It's time. It's Vader time. Vader. Big Van Vader, WCW Vader. He wrestled by Big Van Vader in WCW. He used to come to the ring with this big elephant robot head thing. Then he'd take it off, and then he would wrestle kind of like this. But he's got these gloves on, and I really always really liked Vader. Just the way he would throw punches. It looked like he really knew how to throw a punch. He would kind of knock him in the side of the head. He was came across like legit tough. Or just a big tough guy that you wouldn't want to mess with. Just like a big nasty grizzly bear, but he always kind of wore this mask, but sometimes he would take the mask off and it really didn't matter because the mask was kind of revealing. We kind of knew what he looked like anyway, but in Japan, Vader was a big deal. He was just a dominant, guy in Japan, and in WCW, same thing. He was really dominant, and not a lot of guys could beat him. He did a power bomb, then he did kind of this splash thing off the second rope. But he was a believable opponent for both Hulk Hogan and Sting. Both of those guys had big epic feuds with Vader. And in WCW, he was managed by Harley Race, the late great Harley Race. And then, when he got to the WWF, he was managed by Jim Cornette. But like I said before, his WWF run really wasn't that good. It really wasn't very impressive. So, anyway. But yeah, I like this figure. Pretty good figure. The pose is just kind of perfect for Vader. And, it's a good figure. I like it. Vader. Big Van Vader. And so the last time I tried to come up with my top 5 worst gimmicks. And I gotta say, it was really hard because there were a lot of terrible gimmicks. But I've come up with 5 more that were just awful. Now, these aren't necessarily, like I've said before, these aren't necessarily in order. These bad ones. These are just ones that I remember that were dumb. And I'm gonna read them off to you because, wow, these were some pretty bad ones. So number 5 was Duke the Dumpster Droese. He was a garbage man. Now, Duke Droese, his wrestling style, I didn't have a problem with the way he wrestled, and I didn't have the problem with his charisma. He had a lot of charisma, but just the fact that there's a garbage man as a wrestler. The thing is, if you're trying to come across as a legit sport, but yet you got guys in there with all these occupational gimmicks, and I don't know. He's supposed to be garbage man. Whatever. So number 4 is a terrible gimmick, but fortunately, it didn't last long. But then he turned into somebody else. So number 4 is Friar Ferguson, a Catholic monk who would come down wearing his brown robe, and he had this little water bottle with him. And then after he would beat his opponent, he would give them water from this water bottle to show compassion. But it was stupid, but it didn't last long. Then he became Bastion Booger, which I mentioned on my last video. So, Friar Ferguson. And then number 3 was supposed to be a hockey player, and they called him the Goon. Now, he didn't last long. He wasn't in any feuds or anything. He was just a character that they created hoping that something would stick, but it didn't really. Now, what was interesting is that his boots, like the bottom of them, they kind of fashioned them to kind of look like skates, like ice skates. And of course, he would come down in all of his hockey gear with a stick, and he'd have this hockey mask on. And apparently, in the sport of hockey, they have these guys called the Goons. And these Goons, these are guys that kind of are the rough and tough. They kind of do all the body checks and they start fights, or well, I don't know. I'm not a big hockey guy, but anyway, this guy, apparently he really was a hockey player, and so Vince just made him a hockey player. Oh, you're I'm going to call you the Goon. So I don't know. And number 2 is a guy that they actually used in 1995 against Bret the Hitman Hart. And he was the evil dentist, Isaac Yankem, DDS. That's right. An evil dentist was in a feud with Bret the Hitman Hart. So, he was supposed to be Jerry the King Lawler's personal dentist. But then when he smiled, like all his teeth were kind of messed up. And they do all these promos where he was at his dentist office and he'd really be like drilling into somebody's teeth, and the person would be just screaming in pain. And, apparently, but he's also a really good wrestler on the side. Because that happens. Dentists, they do professional wrestling on the side. He was a dentist. I move on. So number 1 on this list, and like I said, these are not necessarily in order, but number 1, the evil pirate, Jean-Pierre Lafitte. That's right, an evil pirate. Well, technically all pirates are evil, but this guy was another one that feuded with Bret Hitman Hart in 1995. He's a pirate, eye patch and all. Yeah. So now I don't want this to come across like the WWF only had terrible gimmicks, because WCW had some pretty bad ones too. Like they had Oz, which was Kevin Nash, who dressed like the Wizard of Oz. Yeah. They had a tag team of skateboarders, and I don't know, WCW, they had some pretty cheesy gimmicks too. Maybe I'll talk about some WCW gimmicks one of these days, but yeah, especially like during this time frame, like in the 90s, WWF went all like gimmick mode, and there were some terrible, terrible gimmicks. So, to review, it's Vader time. Horrible gimmicks. So, again, I know it's kind of a different background, but my wife is gone for the night. I'm just here by myself. This is what I do when I'm here by myself. So, I tried to watch SummerSlam 2001 today, and honestly, I couldn't get through the whole thing. I got through maybe half of it, and I just turned it off because I just didn't care. That was back when WCW had been bought out, and they were trying to do this WCW, ECW invasion angle where WCW and ECW kind of teamed up to face the WWF, but honestly, WWE at the time, I think the reason why the invasion angle didn't work is because WCW didn't have the names that were affiliated with WCW. You know, they didn't have Hogan, they didn't have Goldberg, they didn't have Hall or Nash at the time. They did have Diamond Dallas Page, but he was already in a feud with The Undertaker and Kane. So they just didn't have it. And then they did have the ECW guys. But if you're doing a WCW invasion angle in WWF, you can't have guys like Test in your WCW group. A guy that's affiliated with WWF and has always been affiliated with WWF. You know, Test was not known as a WCW guy. So, anyway, but yeah, I just didn't care. And to be honest, I'm probably not going to watch the rest of them. I mean, I might later on down the road, just kind of for memory's sake, if I want to like remember like my first wife who was into that era of wrestling. But yeah, I just wasn't into it. So, but I mean, it was the advantage of watching them on the DVDs, especially the earlier ones, is that you actually get the actual real entrance music for guys like Ravishing Rick Rude. It's not that terrible generic ones that they play on the network or on Peacock, but it's the actual original entrance music for Rick Rude. So, anyway, I guess that'll do it. So, if you're new here, go ahead and like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. And if you can share it if you want to on social media. And I will see you next time.